I suppose if you want to profit off of your fanfic writing, this is the way to do it. Choose something that is in the public domain and then copy it almost scene for scene and publish it as your own work. Oh yes, and add a supernatural element. Hi guys, it's April, and I'm going to do this review the same way I do all of my other reviews. I'm going to have the non-spoilery section up front, followed by the spoiled filled dump afterwards. So if you don't want to spoil yourself, I'll let you know when that transition happens. Also, I received a copy of this book for a free and honest review, and that in no way has swayed my opinions on it, as you are about to find out. The Angel of the Crows by Katherine Addison is Sherlock Holmes meets supernatural. It takes elements from angel mythology, and it also takes other supernatural elements and it throws it into the Sherlock universe, plus Jack the Ripper, and then you get this book, which apparently was a Sherlock wingfic, which is basically just a Sherlock fanfiction written with angels, and that's pretty much this book. This book does change the Sherlock character and the Watson character. Instead you have Crow, who is an angel, and you have Dr. Doyle, who is a war veteran with a secret. But that is pretty much all that has changed for the Sherlock elements of this story. I really liked the angel lore that Addison slowly drips out throughout this book. You aren't given this big info dump on everything that is going on with the angels and the nameless ones and the fallen and vampires and werewolves and all of that, and how it all integrates into the society that has pretty much accepted them as fact. It is part of their world. So a lot of these terms are very much embedded into their dialogue and into their mindset, which is very interesting to see. My only problem comes to the fact that this isn't just inspired by Sherlock Holmes. This is pretty much a recounting of a lot of the Sherlock stories. You have scene by scene by scene of several of the cases in the original Sherlock stories, and that leads to a very boring story. If you have read Sherlock before, if you know a lot of the well-known cases that a lot of retellings take when you're looking at Sherlock, then you're not going to find anything too exciting in this read. Yes, you have that supernatural element that every once in a while pops up in the story and changes it just a little bit, but it isn't enough to stand on its own feet. The characters are all the same, the personalities are all the same. This very much does feel like a fan fiction, which apparently it is. And I also have a problem when we use gender identity as a plot twist or some kind of shock value, which is what happened in this. It didn't feel right. Yes, it made sense for the character, but the way everything was revealed and how it was used, I just don't think you should do that with gender identity. So I don't even know where else to go with explaining this book. Basically, if you've read Sherlock Holmes, you've read this book. I feel like so much more could have been done with the Sherlock aspects of it. It needed to be more of a retelling or an inspired by to really keep my interest. Otherwise, it was just very bland. And it takes a lot of those older elements of Sherlock, it keeps it in there, and I don't think that really translates for a modern audience or a modern reader. So while the premise of this story sounded very interesting, Jack the Ripper, London, Sherlock, paranormal elements, it didn't quite get there. It still felt like it was a fan fiction that needed a lot of revision to really capture an audience, to really become its own thing. So this is the point in the review in which I'm going to start putting spoilers out. So if you don't want to be spoiled, this is the point in which you leave, you read, and you come back and we start a conversation. Otherwise, feel free to stick around and things are about to happen. I don't know why I didn't realize that this was pretty much fan fiction when I started out. The beginning of this book started out really well. You have this war that's going on in Afghanistan. You've got Dr. Doyle, who was injured and everything going on, and then comes back with this ability to transform into a hellhound. You have the Crow, who is somehow managed to not become fixed on a location like most angels have to be, and yet somehow he's not a fallen, and so he's this very ambiguous gray character, which I really liked. And the lore around all of those creatures, around the hellhounds, around the angels and the nameless and the fallen, I really was invested in that. But after the first part of the book, a lot of that just kind of trickles away. It becomes something that's part of the story, but it isn't the main reason of the story. It is just Sherlock. It is literally all of the same stories. You already know who the bad guys are. You know how things are gonna lay out if you have read Sherlock at all. And the fact that you have all of these mini episodes inside of this big Jack the Ripper storyline, it's hard to keep interest because you know what's going on, and it breaks up the Jack the Ripper case so much that you almost forget that that is even going on. And so I wonder if something like this would have done better in a short story format, and you take those characters and those personalities and those traits, but you make it something its own. Because Sherlock has been done so much that it's hard to compete in that realm. There's so many good retellings, there's so many good adaptations, that just to not even do anything with the source material, but take scene by scene those cases, especially the popular cases like the Hounds of Baskerville, it doesn't do Addison's writing any justice, because she did very, very well writing the lore and building that up and feeding that piece by piece by piece. But then the rest of it just, it felt too gimmicky. And the fact that Dr. Doyle's gender as a female, that she's been dressing as a male, she has been identifying as a male for however long, as a shock, as a plot twist in the middle of the book, after we've adjusted ourselves to these characters and then we just do this big reveal, doesn't feel right to me. I don't mind Doyle's gender identity. It doesn't bother me in any way, but the fact that we're using it as a oh my gosh moment, as a shock moment, as something like, oh, well, maybe, I don't like that. And I don't know if that was intentional, because she doesn't really hint at it anywhere in the story, and then it's just there, and it doesn't feel right. I think if there was more moments where Doyle is not only struggling with the fact that he's turning into a hellhound, but that there are some of these things in his past, and it's something that isn't hidden, especially since it's written from his perspective. Why are we hiding it? I don't know. I struggled with this book. I fell asleep reading this book. It's not something that I think I will ever recommend to anybody, if I'm honest. And those are my thoughts. Tell me down below if you have read this book, if you have any thoughts on this book, or if you just want to say hi. And of course, if you want to stay up to date every time I upload, subscribe, and I heart your beautiful faces.